very much, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen. Today, in the proposition side of this House, we stand on a side that means that the benefits they are portraying in the opposition side do not outweigh the cost, ladies and gentlemen. We do value both lives, the life of the embryo and the life of the teenager who may be cured of Huntington's disease, in the same way. What we do not understand is why, if they value one life, who is someone who is growing into an adult, into a doctor, or a future architect, if they value that life, why in the opposition side they don't value the same potential in an embryo? It is just a matter of the scale we are using, and they just didn't give us any analysis on what was the difference. In order to support our case, we came up with three main arguments. The first one, about the importance of life, of valuing life. And they told us that if they don't have nerve connections or they can breathe on their own, then we shouldn't value those lives. In that case, we shouldn't be valuing the life of individuals who are connected to a machine or to a fake heart. Ladies and gentlemen, we value life because of the very same potential it has, of the potential of having a new heartbeat and being able to run a marathon, or the potential of growing into a kicking baby. Ladies and gentlemen, then we talked about the ethics in the scientific method. And Bernardo didn't told us anything about this argument on our side. But we still believe it's an important argument, because the scientific method is about the means being coherent with the ends. The end doesn't justify the means. And they never gave us a piece of analysis, which is the point that we gain in our side. The third argument about the attitudes and precedents that we want to create in our society will be dealt during my speech. But before I do so, I would like to do some rebuttal about what they came up with during Bernardo's speech. And they talked about 2 points: the importance of stem cells as a path to quality of life and further knowledge. The first argument, they told us that quality of life could only be improved by these wild cards and these important information. And they told us that if we could create a pancreas in someone who has diabetes, we would be able to save the life. Ladies and gentlemen, Spain is one of the countries which best healthcare. It is actually the country with most heart transplants. The fact is that in Spain, it is compulsory for you to donate the organs. This increases the chances of you having a pancreas transplant. And they told us that not all organs were able to be transplanted. And they came up with a ridiculous example about the bone marrow of a teenager. The bone marrow can be transplanted in order to cure some diseases. Yes, we know it is excruciating, but ladies and gentlemen, just because an individual is able to scream and tell us it hurts a lot, doesn't mean that the embryo is going to feel the same way. Oh, dude, I'm going down the street. Yes, madam.
Well, there is actually a much higher risk of rejection from donating an organ than from stem cells.
Yeah, but that has only to do with the compatibility of blood cells. If we make compulsory donation of organs, that will not happen, as in Spain. Ladies and gentlemen, it is also about the fact that they do not recognize the importance of the difference between the embryo and the now adult. The adult is able to communicate to us if it hurts. But if that adult had a brain impediment, he wouldn't be able to tell us that paychecks hurts a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, the embryo is likewise not able to tell us what is happening. And just because they are not able to communicate with us doesn't mean that we should undermine them and believe that they are primitive, as Bernardo called them, and we should just make them disposable. This leads to the second argument portrayed by the opposition: further knowledge and how we could save people with Huntington's. And they told us that research within the embryos was valuable information for us to know Huntington's. Yes, very good, team opposition, but still we cannot cure Huntington's in an adult. And you say in your first argument that it is only about improving the quality of life of the already, and I'm quoting, the already existing life, which you say was more important. But we cannot cure Huntington's in the already adult. So thank you, sir. What we can do is to select the embryo by pre-implantation selection, to select the embryo that has no Huntington's. But then you're valuing the life of an embryo without Huntington's more than an embryo with Huntington's. Earlier, you're valuing the life of the embryo itself. Ladies and gentlemen, this was a contradiction about what their conception of life is. And they don't seem to value the same things in just the embryo and the adult. But they are the same characteristics, and that is why we value them on the proposition side.
On that point,
yes, sir.
but why is it then that you want to experiment in old people that have terminal cancer? Why don't you value their lives?
Thank you very much. We don't want to experiment in old people who have cancer. If they give their consent to scientific research and the welfare of humanity, yes, we would love to experiment on them. But as we cannot ask the embryo, we won't like to experiment with them. This leads me to our third argument, the attitudes and precedents that we want to create. Science has a responsibility towards society. Why? Because science has an influence in society. So in the same way that we create an influence about curing people and the responsibility it carries with, we believe that science shouldn't do malpractice, for example. We don't find it okay to experiment in handicapped people or in old patients, because we believe that is unethical. So the responsibility of science is ethics in its core. And what is the influence we want to create in our society? The proposition side in this house wants to create attitudes and precedents of valuing life. That we should respect life in all stages of it. As we respect the life of a teenager, because we're not like teenagers, and we respect the life of an old adult, we believe, ladies and gentlemen, that we should respect the life of the little embryos.
On that point.
No, thank you, sir. We should respect life at all stages in the process, in the developing process. And if we are able to see that from microscopic to macroscopic and teenagers, we are able to make these change in the attitudes about respecting and valuing life, then we will set a precedent and we would encourage attitudes about spending life in large scale. But they want to create different attitudes and different precedents. They say to us that today that life is disposable. In a microscopic scale, and as they fail to prove to us what was the difference between the microscopic scale and the macro scale, then they are saying us that life as a whole is disposable. No, ladies and gentlemen. That thing can communicate and breathe. Should we care? Yes. They are saying no just because it doesn't breathe and it doesn't communicate. We don't want to create more attitudes, and we don't want to proliferate this behavior about undermining life or certain sectors in life. It is because of this we believe it's a very good idea to ban the use of human embryos in scientific research. For the importance of valuing life, the ethics in the scientific method and how the end doesn't justify the means, and because we want to create good attitudes and good precedents. It is on these grounds, ladies and gentlemen, that I beg you to propose the motion.
It's better